All right, let's get into it. You know that feeling, right? You open up your monthly cloud bill, you see the total, and your heart just sinks a little. Well, a lot of the time, that's because of hidden costs lurking in the shadows. And today, we're putting on our detective hats to unmask one of the biggest offenders out there, cloud networking.
So, let's set the scene for our investigation. Imagine this number, $22,500 hits your inbox. That's your bill for the month. And when you look closer, you see almost all of it is for something called data transfer. This isn't just some random number. This is our crime scene.
And here's where it gets really weird. You dig in and you see your actual servers, the compute power you're using, that's only $5,000. So the $1 million question, or I guess the $17,500 question, is where on earth is the rest of that money going? That's the mystery we're cracking today.
Okay, so our first stop on this investigation is probably the last place you'd think to look. We're not even talking about the internet yet. We're looking at traffic that costs you a fortune without ever leaving your own cloud environment.
And meet our first culprit, inter-availability zone traffic. Just think of an availability zone, or AZ, as a separate data center building. Now, when your app in one building needs to talk to your database in another building, even if they're in the same city, your cloud provider starts a meter running. They bill you for all that internal east-west chatter.
Now, you might look at this and think, a penny per gigabyte? Big deal. And yeah, it looks tiny, but this is a charge you'll find on AWS, on Azure, on GCP, it's everywhere. And when you have terabytes and terabytes of data flying back and forth between your services all day, every day, those pennies add up. It's a classic case of death by 1,000 cuts.
So what's causing all this cross-zone chatter? Well, here's the kicker. A lot of the time, it's a feature that's supposed to be helping you. Things like cross-zone load balancing are fantastic for making your app resilient, but the load balancer doesn't care about your bill. It just blindly sends traffic from a server in one zone to an app in another, and boom, you're getting charged for it.
All right, let's move on to the next phase of our investigation. This one is the classic villain of cloud costs, the one you've probably heard horror stories about. We're talking about the insane price you pay for data that actually leaves the cloud provider's network.
And see, data egress isn't just one thing. It's a whole family of costs. You pay when you send data to your users over the internet, obviously, but you also pay when you send it to another region for disaster recovery, or to another cloud provider if you're multi-cloud, or even back to your own data centers. Each one of these paths has its own, often very high price tag.
This quote, man, it just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the business model. The providers make it incredibly easy and usually free to shovel all your data into their cloud. But the second you want to take it out, that's where they get you. It's the fundamental rule you have to design around.
Okay, the plot thickens. Our investigation now leads us to a couple of accomplices. These are specific networking services that seem harmless, but their pricing models have some, well, let's call them gotchas.
First up, the NAT gateway. Now, this thing is super important for security. It lets your private servers, like your databases, reach out to the internet for things like software patches, but it doesn't let the internet talk back to them. It's essential, but it's hiding a costly secret.
And here is that secret. The pricing is a two-part trap. You've got this tiny little per-hour fee that you'll barely even notice on your bill, but the real killer, the line item that will make your eyes water, is the per-gigabyte processed fee. Every single gigabyte that flows through that gateway, in or out, adds to your bill. So if you have a chatty containerized app that's constantly pulling down updates, that cost can absolutely explode.
And don't for a second think this is just a NAT gateway problem. Nope. This pattern pops up all over the place. Services like AWS Private Link or Azure Private Endpoints, which are great for secure internal traffic, they often have that same pricing model. You pay for the data, not just for the service. It's a theme.
Okay, so we've identified our main suspects, we've seen how they operate. Now for the best part of any detective story, the reveal. How do we solve this case and architect our way out of this mess and into a much, much smaller cloud bill?
Just look at the difference here. On the left, we've got the Chatty app. You can see web servers in one AZ are constantly talking to app servers in another AZ. That's just bleeding money in cross-AZ fees. But now look to the right at the cost-aware app. What did we do? We put the web and app servers together in the same AZ. Simple. We eliminated that chatter. We started using private endpoints to avoid that expensive NAT gateway. It's all about being intentional with where you place your services.
And what's the payoff for this smart thinking? This bar chart tells the whole story.
We took that insane $17,500 networking charge and we crushed it, all the way down to $2,000. That is a game-changing amount of money, saved just by paying attention to how our data moves.
So, the big question is, how can you do this too? Well, we're not going to leave you hanging. Here is your official Cost Detectives toolkit to take with you.
It really just boils down to these 4 things. 1. Actually map out your data flows. You can't fix what you can't see. 2. Read the fine print. Always be on the lookout for that per gigabyte processed fee. 3. Be smart about placement. Keep things that talk a lot in the same zone. And 4. Monitor. For goodness sake, set up billing alerts that are specifically watching data transfer costs. That way you'll never be surprised again.
And with that, our case is closed. But I want to leave you with one final question to take back to your team. Think about it. Right now, what is the single most expensive data packet flowing through your architecture? And do you know why it's so expensive? Answering that question is your first step to becoming the hero who finally tames the cloud bill.